Hello guys, and welcome back to my Python tutorials for beginners. In these tutorials I'm going to teach you about Python Boolean. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about Python Boolean as a data type and how to work with Booleans. Okay, here we go. Python Boolean is one of the Python data types that returns true and false based on conditions. It only works in two states, the truth state and the false state. As we move on, we're going to take some examples so we'll get to know and understand better. So there are mathematical symbols or characters used to perform Boolean operations. They include the equals, like I told us earlier in the previous tutorials, that double of this equal to is what we call equal to here in Python, while single is called an assignment operator. We use equal to perform Boolean operation. We also use something like greater than. We also use less than. We also use not equal to. Then we also use less than or equal to, something like this, greater than or equal to, and so on. So as we move on, we go to understand better. Let me make it a comment so the program will be ignored. Now we move on. If I do something like this, let me say print, like I told us initially that in Booleans, the bool only operates in two states, truth or false. If a condition is certain, it will return true. If a condition is not certain or a condition is not met, it will return false. And so let's consider this example. If we say 85 equal to, if we say 85 equal to 75, print 85 equal to 75. If you run the program, you see it will return what? It returns false, because actually 85 and 75 are not the same. They are not equal. 85 and 75 are not equal. That's why it returns false. If you say 85 not equal to 75, it will return true. You can see it here. It returns true because 85 is not what? Equal to 75. What it will say, we can also do something like this. If we say 85 greater than 75, it returns what? True, because this condition is factual. We can also use less than. We say 85 less than 75, it will return false because 85 is actually not less than 75. You see now, it returns false because the condition is not factual. We can also do something like, maybe you can say 85 less than or equal to 75, it returns what? False, because that condition is not true. If we say 85 greater than or equal to 75, it returns what? True, because the condition is what? Factual, because the condition is met. So these are some of the mathematical symbols which we use in performing Boolean operations in Python. And so we move on. These symbols, we call them Boolean operators because they are used to perform Boolean operations. We can also use conditional statements, the if and else statement, to perform Boolean operations as well based on condition. Let's define a variable named called A. We'll define a variable called A, then we'll assign value to it, let's say 54. Then we define another variable B and assign value to it at 80. I will use conditional statement now, the if and else statement, to determine if this operation is true. If we say if, you can say if A is greater than B. If A is greater than B, then if A is greater than B, print true. Else, print false. So what this means is, if A is greater than B, then the program should return true. Else, it should return false. That is, if this condition is not true, it should skip this line of code and execute the second line of code. So let's run a program. Look at the values assigned to each of the variables. A is assigned 54 and B is assigned 80. So let's run the program and see how it works. You can see it here. It returns what? False, because the value in A is less than the value in B. So the condition is what? False. Now we can change this operator. You can change the operator and use less than. And we'll say if A is less than B, print true. Else, if A is not less than B, print what? False. Now A is less than B, so the program should return true. It returns what? True, because A is less than what? B. You can also say if A less than or equal to B, print returns true. If this condition is true, that A is either less than or equal to B, then it returns true. It returns what? True, because A is neither less than or equal to B. Or you can say if A greater than or equal to B, it should return true. If this condition is factual, it will return true. If not, it will skip this line of code and return what? False. You can see it here, it returns false because A is not greater than or equal to B. Now let's assign the same value to A, 80. So if we now say if A equal to B, returns true, else returns false. That is, if A is not equal to B, returns false. But here to return what? True, because A is equal to what? B. The value stored in A is equal to the value stored in B. So this is basically how to use the conditional statement to perform Boolean operations. You can also maybe define a list of objects and check if a particular sequence exists in our list. So I will create another variable, object1, a list of objects. Let me use blue. I'm going to use blue, red, green, black, and so on. So it can your list can contain as many objects as possible according to what you need. So I'll stop here. Now I have created a list of objects, and these are the objects in my list. Remember, we use the square bracket to define list of objects. So these are the objects in my list: blue, red, green, and black. So now let's give it a condition, and then we'll see the Boolean reaction. If blue in obj1, then print the color exists, else print the color doesn't exist. All right, here we go. So let's run a program and see the outcome. If this color blue exists in the object, exists in our list, then it will return the color exists. Else it will return the color doesn't exist. Here we go. You can see now the color does what? Exist. That is printed it out. The color exists because blue is in our list. If we put red, it will also return the color exists because red is in our object. Let's use maybe a color which is not in our list, say purple. If we put purple, it returns the color doesn't what? Exist, because this object purple is not in our object list. So you can see how it works now. This is basically how to use conditional statement to perform Boolean operations. So we can also use the not in. We can say if purple not in, if purple not in, our object return the color does not exist, else the color exists. Something like this. So let's move on. The color exists. Now we are using the not in to check through our sequence of objects. If this object purple or the color purple exists in our list of objects, let's say you can see it here, the color does not exist because purple is not in our object. If we use something else, let's say we'll put what is in our list red, you can see the color exists because red is in our list. So this is basically how to use the conditional statement to perform Boolean operations. You can use the bool function to check the Boolean of any object or any integer or string. If you do something like x, let's say x equals bool, then we'll now pass what we need inside our bool function, the bool parenthesis. Let's say bool 100, then print x. Now, like I said, the bool of any number returns true except the bool of 0. So here you see now it returns true at the third line here. It returns true. If we put bool 10, it will return true. Let's use negative number here. Let's say bool -2, it will return also true. So be it positive or negative index or number, it will return true. The bool of any integer or any number returns true, but the bool of 0 returns false. It is only the bool of 0 that returns false in Boolean operation. If we put bool 0, it returns false, because bool 0 does not exist. We see it as nothing. We can do something more. Let's say we'll do something like this. Let me define another variable. Say num1 equals string. Num1 equals string. Then we are going to use is alpha and is decimal to consider each of these states. You can say print num1 dot is alpha. It's a function or a method that will return true if the string contains alphabet or only alphabet. It returns true. You can see it here at the third line of our code. It returns true. If you add numeral here, if you print and see, it returns false. You can see it here. It returns false because the string does not contain only alphabet. It also contains numerals. So we can also do something like this. We can do a very simple project. We can do a very simple project to check if a particular sequence exists in our list. My list 1. Then we define some list of objects. We're going to have let's use alphabets. Some list of alphabets. Let me say A, then have B, then C. Let's just make it random, like mix it awful. Then it's E. Then we have, let's say G. We also have Y. Then we'll have P in upper cases. Then we'll define another list, my list 2. We'll define upper cases here. Let's define another list in lower cases in this case, but the same alphabet A. Why we are doing this is because Python is case sensitive. Python is case sensitive. So we want to ensure that whatever we are getting from the user, it either in uppercase or in lowercase, it will not return error because Python is case sensitive. And after G, we have Y, we have P as well. P. Now we have defined our two lists of objects. We are going to write a program to accept, to ask the user to enter any alphabet. Then if the alphabet that the user enters exists in this our list of objects, then we are going to return an answer to the user. We have defined our list. Then let's say N3. Let me define another variable. Input. Enter any alphabet. Enter any alphabets. We ask the user to enter any alphabet. Then if the alphabet entered is in our list, we'll tell the user that the alphabet exists in our list, else the alphabet do not exist. How do we do that? With conditional statements. Hope we are getting along. So I'll now say if, define it. Let's say if N3, that is what the user will enter, if entry in my list, if entry in my list 1 or entry in my list 2. We are telling this program that if what the user will enter is in our first list and or is in our second list, the or statement returns true if both conditions are true. Say print the value you enter exists in our list, else if that condition is not true, then you should print the value you entered does not exist. The value you entered does not exist in our list. So let's run a program. Alright, enter any alphabet. If you enter A, say the value you entered exists in our list. You can see that now because actually A is in our list. Let me enter A in uppercase. You see the value you enter exists in our list. You can see how it works now. So that's basically how the conditional statement works with booleans. If you enter, let me use W in uppercase. So the value you entered does not exist in our list. Why? Because there's no W in our list of objects here. Even if we use it in lowercase, you can see the value you enter does not exist in our list. So this is basically how to perform Boolean operations in Python, how to work with Booleans and bool in Python. Thanks and see you in the next tutorial.